Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Rotoworld Football Show on Tuesday, January 21st, 2025. Remember the year yet again. We're getting down. There's 4 teams left. I mean, you might think there's less to talk about then. There's actually a lot to talk about because we got 2 championship games coming up this weekend, but we're not going to talk about those today.
Why would we?
So we are scrounging for stuff to talk about.
No, hey, look, I'm going to talk so much about Anthony Richardson's throwing mechanics. You don't even know.
No, honestly, a good topic. We're going to preview the AFC and NFC championship games on Thursday. Some of that will probably bleed into today's show, but got a big lead topic today. That was the star of the coaching cycle, taking a job that was not considered one of the best openings. It was considered the best opening maybe you're going by young quarterback talent, but the Bears ownership and front office structure, it seemed like it's been a turnoff to a lot of head coaching candidates. But Ben Johnson, who was extremely picky in 2024, turning down the Commander's job, is now in Chicago. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about you want to talk about a dysfunctional head coaching opening, Denny. The Dallas Cowboys, but people are lining up to take this job.
Oh, they want it so bad.
They're not at all being forced to recycle and retread some of the very worst NFL coaches of the 21st century. Brian Schottenheimer is not at all, and Brian Schottenheimer is the betting favorite for the Cowboys.
He is. It's true. I thought that was a joke, and then I saw we had a blurb on it, and I was like, wait, what?
Yep. Brian Schottenheimer, maybe in Big D. Then we'll talk about Jacksonville. Seemed like a really good Ben Johnson landing spot, but he didn't go there. We'll talk about the fallback option of Liam Coen. We'll talk about Bobby Slowik did nothing wrong. We may or may not have been trashing Bobby Slowik all year long on this podcast, but we're going to look powerfully into the data and see if Bobby had no choice.
It didn't sound like D'Amico Ryans was in agreement on that statement, but we'll talk about that in a second.
Anthony Richardson had no choice but to try to learn how to throw a football, didn't he? That might be too strong.
It'll help.
He's working with a biometrics coach, the same guy who helped Josh Allen a few years ago, apparently. Then we have some time. We're going to get into some EPA underachievers, a.k.a. the computers claiming the 49ers were still good. The Falcons were fine. The Kyler was still good. Computers don't really know what's going on. They don't actually watch the games, Denny. Denny, I'll say this. I watched the games. Before we get into the Ben Johnson discussion, do you think the JMO pass was Ben Johnson's way of just being able to take the Bears job now and not having to wait until 3 weeks after a Lions Super Bowl run? Do you think that moment was like, listen, I don't got 3 more weeks. Like, I got to get out of here. I got to start working.
It does kind of feel like if they just would have done the traditional quarterback pass, that they probably would have won that game or at least come awfully close against Washington. I don't know, man. In crunch time, you're going to have Jameson Williams, like whose judgment is not exactly sound, you're going to let him make that throw. I feel like he either got too fancy there or he maybe had kind of checked out. I don't know. I'm seeing this bandied about online.
Getting too fancy is known as a McDaniels rule. And I'm going to compare him to Josh McDaniels immediately in just a second here. But it wasn't just that it was the receiver pass. It wasn't just that it was taking the ball out of Jared Goff's hands. It really was that it was putting the entire season on the judgment of Jameson Williams, who, as we know, is going for the suspension Yahtzee. It is also going earlier, like 20 minutes earlier in real time, like seriously became the first NFL player in many years to try to test the key and peel thrust rule. And as you said, his teammates had to rush in and pull him
and stop him from the third thrust.
Yeah, it was astonishing to witness on so many different fronts. But Ben Johnson, we'll get into it. He's the new head coach of the Chicago Bears. I posted online the other day. This is only the second Bears head coaching hire since Lovie Smith that could not be first guessed. Mark Trestman could be first guessed. Matt Eberflus could be first guessed. I know there's some other ones in there. Matt Nagy, despite turning out to be a disaster, couldn't really be first guessed. That was a fundamentally sound hire. Ben Johnson, despite giving me some McDaniels vibes, Denny, is a fundamentally sound hire. To start off the top, what does Ben Johnson's arrival in Chicago, you think, mean for the Bears, and of course the Bears offense and Caleb Williams?
Yeah, well, the Athletic's Dan Pompei had some thoughts posted online last night about what Ben Johnson can or might do with Caleb Williams. And again, let's just cut to the chase. This is all about Caleb Williams and bringing in a guy who can go ahead.
I would say that was to the test they had to pass this head coaching hire. Like, at least the Bears didn't pretend Like, no, it's the best guy from the job.
No.
To be someone who plays 1932 defense, that's fine. They're the best.
Yeah.
The Bears passed the test of understanding they're not going anywhere if they don't solve this one problem. He might not solve this problem, but the only thing that matters is trying to solve this problem. Sorry.
And Caleb Williams said on Amon-Ra St. Brown's podcast recently that he wants an offensive minded coach. He wanted Ben Johnson particularly. There was a fake Ben Johnson who texted him at some point, which was kind of funny. But they got the real guy. And so Dan Pompei from The Athletic was talking about how when Ben Johnson got to Detroit, he empowered Jared Goff to do things that Goff had not been able to do or had not been allowed to do in his career leading up to that point, which was, read the defense at the line of scrimmage, make adjustments both in run and pass, to make decisions on the sidelines with the offensive coordinator, with Ben Johnson, to say, this is what I'm seeing. He wasn't asked any of that. He didn't have any sort of say or pull with Sean McVay, or in his very early days with the Lions. I guess, just to get into my reservation here, Jared Goff strikes me as the kind of modern NFL quarterback who will do as he's told. And I know I just said empowered and whatever, but he will drop back 3 steps and throw the ball. He'll drop back 5 steps and throw it a little deeper. Caleb strikes me as the complete opposite.
No.
The complete opposite. He could not get a more different sort of quarterback archetype. So Ben Johnson cannot just do the Jared Goff thing. He has to do something completely different here to get the most out of Caleb Williams.
I'll have a slight pushback on that. Where let me be clear.
Yeah, okay, you be clear.
It's quite frequently Caleb time, where he's like, "All right, it's Caleb time,
always,
man."
Yeah.
But I will say, when the Bears' offense faltered in 2024, which it was all the time, like every 3 or 4 weeks, it seemed like they would redouble their efforts to be like a yak offense or a behind the line of scrimmage offense. He did go along with that most of the time, Caleb, I'll say. Like, I didn't see it as purely a renegade. I did see a guy that too frequently called his own number.
Yeah.
But kind of, how could you not under the circumstances? I'm not entirely convinced, despite his hero ball inclinations, that like Caleb can't be like tamed is not the right word. You don't want to tame Caleb, but just play more within a system. And I it could go either way, because listen, it was Caleb time all the time. But I think he was committed to the bit for a while. Like, yeah,
he was.
If you want me to be a loss guy, LOS, I'll do it. Line of scrimmage.
Yes, and there was a streak of games, about 6 games in the middle of the season, where his air yards per attempt went from like 9 or 10 to like 6, right? To like a Mahomesian type number.
Oh, stop it. Don't say Mahomes. Say someone else. Say Daniel Jones or something.
Well, Mayfield, Mahomes, same guy.
Mm-hmm.
And look, Caleb Williams. So he was good on those. But he ends the season 23rd out of 33 quarterbacks in completion rate over expected. Basically because
so let me stop you right there again. Be real. You wanted and expected that number to be lower, didn't you?
Oh, I thought it would be way lower. And
exactly.
And
you were disappointed when you saw 23 of 33, weren't you?
And I was. I thought it was going to be 34 out of 33. And Caleb Williams, 75 downfield passes, meaning over 20 yards this year, led the league. He completed 20. He completed 20 of 75. It's one of the worst rates in the NFL. And look, I'm not a film guy. I will say, I saw some Bears games this year. You forced me to cover them. They were some of the worst downfield throws I've ever seen. Like, I don't understand how he's so bad at that. So I feel like he's going to have to be like Ben Johnson's going to have to come in and say, look, you have to be a completely different quarterback going forward.
I don't know if it really is going to be that drastic. I think it's just he was not set up. He didn't help his own cause, but he was not set up for success at all. If he's set up for success, like even remotely.
Oh, what?
I'm serious.
No.
I'm serious. I'm not kidding around here. Oh, come
Wait
on, folks, not a joke. Literally.
It is a joke. Wait a second. We went into this season as a football knowing community saying this is the best setup a rookie has ever had in
but we knew that
in the history of the NFL.
We were so quickly we understood what went wrong there almost immediately. We thought it was cool because we play fantasy football.
What went wrong?
That's why we thought it was cool.
The offensive line was fine.
It was unacceptably bad.
The offensive line was fine.
Unacceptably bad. We thought it was cool because they paid a guy, traded for a guy, and drafted a guy.
Wait a second. So you're saying because Keenan Allen had some pizza in Chicago, you're saying that it was a bad cast. Okay.
No, I actually forgot about that part. That did contribute to it.
Just because Keenan Allen turned into a tight end overnight. You're saying
they failed the number one team building test when they drafted Rome Odunze over a blocker.
Wait,
like fundamental like team building error. No. They already had an alpha receiver who's in his prime. And then they traded for the savvy veteran. No. They failed team building 101 when they took Rome Odunze. They really did.
Oh my gosh.
And we fell for it because we're fantasy guys. Fell for it again award. But like we fell for it.
Stop.
Because this is awesome. They're drafting a receiver.
Adunze is good.
And we thought it was such a good setup because they already had receivers. See, don't you see what's going on here? That's why we thought it was so cool. We overlooked that they did not need another receiver. They did need blockers, and they drafted another receiver instead of a blocker, though.
No, I reject. So I guess where we differ is that I reject the premise that a better offensive line would have helped. I don't agree with that.
How do you reject that premise?
I reject the premise because you could put Caleb behind the Dallas Cowboys offensive line in 1992 and he would still be sacked 45 times.
No, he wouldn't.
Because he doesn't throw the ball. He
doesn't throw the ball though because the blocking's always breaking down and the play calling's bad. The same thing happened at USC, to be honest. I know, so what's the common denominator here? Isn't it the quarterback? Like USC had horrific blocking. I really just think that he was not – we thought he was set up to succeed. He was set up to succeed in the great fantasy football PPR scam in our minds, but not the real game of NFL American football.
Oh, come on, man. It's just – I mean, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, that's a good trio of receivers. I'm not saying it's the best, but it's pretty good.
It's pretty good, but the offense – Shane Waldron – okay, listen, the play caller, as we know – was the guy when they asked JSN at the Super Bowl last year. Yeah. Like, do you think Shane Waldron's a good – and he just started laughing. I think he tried to compose himself. He's a nice guy.
Well, and then he said, good luck to the Bears.
Yeah, exactly. Do we really think that this was a good setup then, Denny? His former players LOL'd at the idea of Shane Waldron being Caleb Williams' offensive coordinator. They LOL'd.
I guess. You know, like
he came close to LMAOing.
I forgot about Waldron. And he was bad. There's no way around that. For the second straight year,
the upgrade from Waldron to Ben Johnson is like stratospheric.
I'm just saying, like, look, the kind of quarterback that Caleb was trying to be this past year, it doesn't work. It just doesn't.
I don't think he was trying to be one kind of quarterback. I really do think he was trying to split the baby because the situation was so bad that he played ball. Like when they made the changes, he played ball, but it didn't work, of course. So in the second half, a lot of times he had to start going hero ball. It was Caleb time because the structured offense didn't work. The unstructured offense actually did work a little better. Remember, the narrative every game was Caleb hasn't completed a pass like the first 32 minutes of game time.
And whose fault is that?
Then he'd be good in the second half. That suggests when the quarterback starts playing better, when the script is up and like they're no longer dictating like the pace and tempo, that says something about coaching and game planning. Like, Caleb's only good once the game script and game flow is out of the coaching staff's control. To me, that says a lot about coaching and not necessarily the player.
All right. One last stat. It makes me concerned about Caleb long term. Only Anthony Richardson had a higher rate of uncatchable passes this past year. I don't know. I just think
that was the real concern. Like down the field. Yeah.
This guy was a loose cannon, unlike anything we've seen except for Anthony Richardson recently.
Down the field, it just was never happening. That was concerning for sure. Ben Johnson, to get more in like the vibes and the narrative, like I don't know, man. I get such McDaniels. I get kind of like tyranny vibes from Ben Johnson, even though he said he was empowering Jared Goff. The fact that this guy like won't speak to the media, like already had like a cold war with the Commanders. I just get bad vibe that he and the fact that he was so choosy and picky, like he clearly thinks like he's the next Vince Lombardi.
I mean, he sees himself as Bill Walsh. I think
he does. He's McDaniels 2.0 in that regard. The thing is, he could be right, I guess.
Are you talking about Josh McDaniels?
Yeah, Ben Johnson sees himself so much like Josh McDaniels, where McDaniels was so picky for years and years and years. Both times he goes to take a job, he comes in and tries to be a dictator. It implodes immediately. Like, I just kind of get that fear for Ben Johnson that he's another McDaniels waiting to happen. Like, there's not any old job will do for old Ben Johnson. We got to wait till they're ready for Ben Johnson time.
I do see what you're saying, and I agree to an extent. I'll also say that, like, you know, if you're such a sought after coaching candidate, and I can't think of a recent example of a guy who's more sought after than Ben Johnson.
McDaniels.
I mean, you can be choosy, and you probably should, because you know you go into the wrong situation and you're
he went to the Bears. He went to the Bears,
but that's because of Caleb.
Like the worst franchise in the NFL.
That's because they have a guy who I think he thinks can be good. Otherwise, there's no reason to go to the Bears, right?
There's not. Maybe the reason is that he thinks they're a weak organization and he's going to fill a power vacuum.
They are a weak organization.
They are.
And you're right. And that actually may be a selling point for him secretly, is like, hey, I get to run this whole thing, which is
bad in my opinion. He thinks he's McDaniels.
You might be right. I mean, I will say Ben Johnson's first line of duty should be build a dome. You know,
they're trying
to build a dome.
They're trying.
Build the dang dome. Caleb can't do this in 45-mile-an-hour winds for 8 weeks a year.
They're trying to build the dome. Again, the Chicago mayor literally prayed for the dome.
Me too.
Yeah.
I joined them.
You did. So I don't know. We'll just see. I guess Ben Johnson. I don't know. I'm not really basing that on much, the McDaniels thing. So the thing is, he could be right. That the whole thing. It doesn't matter if he's right that he is the next Bill Walsh. Then it's fine. Then, yeah, whatever. Be a dictator then.
Oh, if he's even in the realm of that. Elite company, then he can do whatever he wants, especially with an organization as success starved as the Bears. Man, they're down bad. Whew.
My other theory too is just that people we're underestimating so hard how much of this was Dan Campbell, because the mentality is from Dan Campbell, the play calling, but I think there's a lot more offensive coordinators who could look like Ben Johnson if the head coach would just allow them to. There's probably a lot of play callers out there that don't want to be Mr. 3 yards in a cloud of dust, or who don't want to be run, pass, run, but they're not empowered by the head coach.
Yeah.
Whereas Dan Campbell, like, no, go do your thing. We're going to be aggressive. And I think there's so much – it's not like Ben Johnson's the only guy who has a flea flicker in the playbook. You know, the difference is that he actually gets to call them.
Yes. Yes. And if you're right, well, I mean, as a head coach, he's going to just call them then. So yeah, that works. I think he can continue being crazy aggressive. Yeah.
It's just then how will he change when the buck stops with him and not Dan Campbell? It's just, I think a lot of this is Dan Campbell. Way more of it is Dan Campbell than people realize. I think. One
thing real quick about that aggressiveness. And is he going to bring that Campbell like fourth down aggression to Chicago? I don't know where the Bears can go from here, because only 3 teams were more aggressive on fourth downs this past year than
it doesn't matter. I mean, when you picture Bears fourth down play, what comes to mind?
Okay, here I'll tell you what comes to mind. 3 short routes and Caleb running around for 11 seconds and then throwing it across his body for an incompletion.
I picture like the slowest developing ever outside pitch to DeAndre Swift. That is then hammered down for a 4-yard
where
loss.
There are 4 defenders in the backfield by the time the ball is caught by Swift. Yeah.
Exactly. So the aggressiveness didn't mean anything. It was just all sound and fury signifying nothing.
Can I just give you one advanced stat without you dismissing it immediately?
To be clear, I like the advanced stats.
I'm going to give you a lot more coming up, and you're gonna hate them. I'm telling you, you might just leave. I might have to do the podcast alone.
My internet went out. I didn't leave. My internet went out.
Right.
What is the stat?
No. Lately, while in our discussion, about other players, about Richardson, whatever.
Oh, yeah. No, I can't wait to hear it. I can very much wait to hear about Brian Schottenheimer, but we have to talk about it since for some reason he was installed as the betting, which doesn't mean a ton. A lot of times, like these betting lines, especially for opaque stuff like draft picks and coaching hires, move because of like one like tweet from like an unverified blue check. Like it doesn't really mean anything.
Yeah.
But he was installed as the head coaching favorite to be the next boss in Dallas, and then he was interviewed on Tuesday. Brian Schotty is quite live to replace Mike McCarthy, which Cowboys fans in hell. And just tell us about potential Schotty in Dallas.
Yeah.
Denny.
I mean, the upside, fantasy wise, would be that we get some continuity and that the Dak offense can just keep doing its thing, which has been, I know this past year was not fun if you drafted Dak and all those guys, CeeDee Lamb, Ferguson, whatever. But I mean, it can be fun if he stays healthy and the defense is fine. If the defense is fine, but not elite, because when it's elite, then the offense stops trying to score points. It seems like. I don't think it's the worst thing. Is it exciting? No, not really.
You don't think you don't think Brian Schottenheimer being the next Cowboys coach would be the worst thing? No. I very much do.
I don't. I think it's just a whatever. He'll be around for a few years. They'll move on to somebody else.
I'm hard pressed to think of anything worse. I'm not even kidding.
Wow.
Just like there's a reason this guy is a meme. He's like if Jeff Fisher never had success. Like Jeff Fisher made the Super Bowl at least, and Jeff Fisher won 13 games with Kerry Collins. Brian Schottenheimer was, he was Eric Mangini's offensive coordinator. He was the coordinator for the 3 worst Rams teams of my lifetime. He was the coordinator the year Mark Richt got fired at Georgia. He was the coordinator for the 3 worst teams of Pete Carroll's lifetime. And he was a passing game coordinator for Urban Meyer. Never heard of him. And he was the coordinator for Mike McCarthy, who after every game, Cowboys fans have like a group-wide nervous breakdown calling for him to be fired on Twitter.
Mike McCarthy did nothing wrong. I will say that. Nothing. I mean, the guy, I know he's not exciting. He doesn't, get your dopamine up if you're a Cowboys fan.
Yeah, he also doesn't win ever.
Not really. I mean, they were on the precipice of like going to the Super Bowl 2 years ago.
Mike McCarthy was calling the plays. Like Schottenheimer wasn't.
No, I get that. But I'm just saying, like this hate for Mike McCarthy. I mean, it's just because Cowboys fans want drama.
Mike McCarthy. Unfortunately, I hate to agree with you, did nothing wrong.
He's very boring. And that doesn't fly. Here's what to be like an engageable NFL head coach. First of all, you have to have triceps. You have to have abs that you can see through the shirt like Sean McVay. And you have to be running up and down the sideline screaming. When's the last time you saw that from Mike McCarthy? Never. That's when.
Well, he scowled a lot though. He did scowl.
Mike McCarthy actually would be like great if you just put him in a booth, calling the plays, and then like had like somebody else to run up and down the sidelines and scream and be demonstrative. Then Cowboys fans would like him.
What you're describing is an offensive coordinator. Very interesting for Mike McCarthy, who could be the next head coach of the New Orleans Saints. I got a little higher on McCarthy when like the Cowboys really had the ultimate "we are going to quit" season, and then just didn't quit. No, that was an interesting data point.
I think so too. I mean, I was bowled over by the last 6 weeks or so of the Cowboys season. I was like, wait a second. These guys are playing their asses off for McCarthy.
CeeDee Lamb's like rotator cuff was hanging on by one thread and kept playing.
And they played. Yeah,
they did. Schotty, man. I mean, Schotty's the ultimate, like Jerry wants to be the coach before he dies kind of thing. Like Jerry needs even more power somehow. And like, I can't think of a worse decision than hiring Brian. Like he's 51 and has no pedigree. He has a resume. Like he has stops that he can put on his resume. He has no, when someone says shoddy ball, like nothing even comes to mind. Like he has no pedigree. He has no, like, it would be like a stunningly uninspired, unimaginative. The owner wants to be in charge higher.
Yeah, I mean, his Seahawks run was pretty rough. I will say that was like the end of Russ.
It was the end of Russ.
Yeah.
I think when they fired him, we got like the Russ, the final Russ bounce that first half of the 2021 season. Maybe that was 2020 actually. That actually might have been 2020 when Shoddy.
Well, 2020 Russ was hot for the first 8 weeks, and then
all right. Well, that was actually when Shoddy was in charge then. So never mind. Shoddy's a good hire.
I'm glad we agree.
No, I mean, yikes! You gotta do better than Shoddy, is all I'll say. We have to do better than continuing to talk about Shoddy. We'll be right back after this. Watch the biggest names in sports talk, including Mike Florio, Dan Patrick, Dan Lebitard, and Matthew Berry, as they cover the biggest moments on and off the field each weekday on the NBC Sports Now channel. It is now available on Peacock and free on most streaming platforms. Learn more at NBCSports.com/now. Speaking of now, Denny, unless you have a thought, you looked like you had a thought on the
I did. I was just thinking about the college championship game last night, and
there were no survivors.
Do you think Marcus Freeman lifts weights at halftime?
I know, man. I don't even think he was wearing a particularly tight pullover or whatever, and it was still clinging to him.
It was
still clinging because he's so buff.
He gets stronger by the week.
He does.
If you look back like 6 weeks ago, he's actually not as big, and he just gets bigger and bigger. I mean, he's bulking up for the NFL, obviously.
I know, like his second half adjustment. They're down. What was it? 21-7. He's writing on the whiteboard, "Get more jacked." And they're like, shouldn't it be about like scoring more points, or something? Yeah, man, seems excessive to me.
It's a lot. Oof, that guy.
I mean, it is. Denny, are we now transitioning from the? It used to be like Bill Parcells couldn't run like a wind sprint if his life depended on it, to now like every coach is like stronger and faster.
It's just it looks like an actual player. I don't want to take anything away from him. He's great coach, very good looking guy, obviously. His grooming is off the charts.
It's insane.
It looks like he uses a laser to trim his beard. Okay. But wow, that guy, I mean, he's brought it to a new level. I mean, every coach, every modern coach is strong, but like he's something else.
I don't think every modern coach is strong.
Well, I should say like let's see, like obviously McVay is getting ridiculous.
Shanny's hitting the weight.
No,
Shanny's not hitting the weights.
He doesn't do all that. Campbell, good Lord.
Boy, Campbell, I mean, he could break anyone in two. He did play. He was a tight end. Tight ends never get out of shape. After they retire.
If Dan Campbell stopped working out for like a month, he wouldn't be unrecognizable.
He would be. It would be insane. That's what I'm saying. He can never stop. Like he's still training like he's an active tight end.
Right. Oh, D'Amico Ryans.
Yeah.
I don't know. There are a lot of coaches.
I mean, like Kevin Stefanski, I could hit the sled harder than Kevin Stefanski, I think.
Jeez. I actually don't think I could hit the sled harder than Jim Harbaugh.
I wonder if I'm stronger than Kyle Shanahan. Probably not. He played football. Even though he doesn't work out anymore, he'd probably.
I think there's a chance.
No. Shanny, even though he's like 10 years old, it's very humbling. I have to admit, even Shanny in his current form would just easily stiff arm me. Probably.
No. No. I disagree. I'd put you up against Shanny.
That's good. I appreciate that, man.
Yeah, no, I'm confident. I mean, people don't know. Pat has that dog in him. I've seen it. It can be a lot of dog.
I have some dog levels. No one's denying that. Shanny, has probably more repressed dog levels than anyone in America. He's waiting to just go totally psycho one day.
I don't know, man. I think you're misreading it. I think he would see you coming and be like, "Well, I guess I'm going to get tackled."
Yeah, that's right. I guess. I guess this random blogger is going to run me over.
I guess the fantasy football guy is going to get.
Yeah, I guess even the fantasy guys are stronger than me. I guess.
What can you do?
I know that I feel bad, so I let him knock me over. I feel bad for the Jaguars, Denny. They did not get their guy, Ben Johnson. No one. Listen, Caleb Williams needed the Ben Johnson glow up. I think no one needed the Ben Johnson glow up more than Trevor Lawrence. And Trevor Lawrence is more of like a triage job like Ben Johnson had in Detroit. Former number 1 overall pick who just has been fine but isn't coming anywhere close to, like, hitting his career ceiling, and really isn't part of the reason if they're winning or winning or not. Like, he needed to level up so bad, Trevor Lawrence. He didn't get the primary level up candidate. He could get one of the next ones in Liam Coen. How do you feel about Bucs OC, kind of erstwhile Shanny disciple Liam Coen? He and Shanny seemed like they didn't, Sean McVay disciple. He and McVay seemed like they didn't see eye to eye. How do we feel about Liam Coen as a fallback option for Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville?
I feel good about it. I mean, I know, obviously you probably want Ben Johnson, but if you can fall back on Liam Coen, I mean, anyone to come into Jacksonville and give Trevor Lawrence some easy throws. Like, that's all we're asking for.
Seriously.
Like, don't make this guy make all-time throws on every single drop back. Like, give him,
because first off, he can't do it.
No, he can't. I mean, he doesn't have the arm strength. I don't think he has the talent to make those kind of
He's
throws.
Goff. Yeah, he's Goff in that regard.
Right. And so give him some easy stuff. Like make the offense work for him rather than him having to make unbelievable passes in order to make the thing go. You have
Brian said it better myself.
Yeah, right. I mean, you have Brian Thomas, who, I mean, looks like a downright elite receiver, like in the vein of like AJ Brown.
Super.
That's awesome. I know we don't like Evan Ingram because he tends to be kind of a safety blanket for Lawrence, but he is a good pass catching tight end.
He's a good pass catching tight end, and it's part of a more sensibly designed offense. He could be quite a weapon, actually.
I agree.
If they just leaned on him, like in the actual key moments instead of every moment, that would be good.
Yes, it would. Trevor Lawrence has actually been pretty good on short area throws, which is what Liam Cohen's whole offense is about. I saw someone. I forget the person who posted this the other day, but they're saying that the whole Bucs offense was just screens like that. And when defenses realized that the whole thing is just screens, then they were able to blow up the Bucs offense. But that's not great in and of itself, but it would be a massive departure from what we're used to seeing in a system in Jacksonville.
Man, when I hear the whole screen offense, I think always back to the Ryan Tannehill Titans days where I would watch those games and get so infuriated. Like, guess what? It's play action again. Not a screen, but guess what? It's a play fake.
So
right?
much. Yeah.
Go sack him. And then some of the really good defense, we're just going to go sack him a bunch. Like, we're not going to ever respect.
We're not going to bite on the play action. Yeah.
And that's what you're saying. The Bucs, the key to stop.
Yeah. And the Jags didn't use a ton of motion, middle of the league and motion usage. So there are little tricks, little fun things that they could do to make Trevor Lawrence's life easier, because Trevor Lawrence's life under Doug Peterson couldn't have been more difficult, honestly.
No. And part of this was probably the quarterback. Like, Liam Cohen's offense provided the freedom for Baker Mayfield to run whenever he wanted, and Trevor Lawrence would be a far better open field runner.
I think so.
Baker Mayfield has been an effective runner on and off throughout his football career. And it could be like a real weapon in that regard.
I have to say, though, Trevor Lawrence loves the feet first slide, and that stuff makes me nervous. You got to stop. Like, Trevor Lawrence, got to stop with the feet first slide. You're setting yourself up to just get your head wrecked.
They got to start enforcing this rule more. I about lost my mind at people losing their minds over the Mahomes penalty, where the Texans guys were trying to helmet him, and instead only helmet to helmet at each other. Like, I know Mahomes lives on the edge and tries to trick people. I didn't think he was trying to trick anyone there.
If they get him on that play, the Chiefs might not win that game.
I feel like every single quarterback slide, every time, I think there should be a penalty if they come in at all, because every single time it's easy for me to say at home. Like, I think there's so many obvious slides where the defender, they come in and then they usually just barrel roll over them. They don't actually hit them. But like, I don't know. I feel like that rule is actually not enforced tightly enough. People are like wanting like less enforcement of that rule. I feel like.
Are you talking about when a quarterback slides feet first?
Yeah. Feet. Or what are you differentiating here? You mean knees first or feet first? What do you?
No, I'm just saying, like, the way to do it, and I think it was Rex Ryan who was saying this a few weeks ago.
You watched too much.
Do it is just dive head first into the knees of the defender, and they'll get out of the way. Like, they're gonna save
hurt more of that. You'll get hurt more that way, I think, at the end of the day. I don't know. I think the feet first slide is very appropriate. It's just that the defenders still keep hitting them.
I would tell. Listen, when I'm a head coach in the NFL, I'm going to tell my quarterback, I don't want to ever see you sliding feet first, because you're just inviting. You're basically begging the defender, please knock my head off. Well, and that's what they do.
If you're going head first, it's going to take like a maximum of 3 weeks for them to wreck your shoulder. Like, I don't think.
Well, okay. So the difference, we're talking about Liam Coen. The difference between the running styles of Baker Mayfield and Trevor Lawrence couldn't be more different. Baker does not slide ever.
No, he doesn't.
And he got through the season somehow.
For like the first time ever.
Somehow.
Did it. Yeah, very much somehow. Would it never be more over, by the way, for Trevor Lawrence if they do a defensive minded hire?
Oh man, that would be so dispiriting. Oh man. Like,
because apparently Robert Saleh's live in Jacksonville.
Yeah, that would make me worry about Lawrence long term. Yeah.
It'd be over. It would be over.
It would feel pretty over. It would feel like, okay, here's what it would feel like. They had conceded that, like, we don't have our guy. And like, we're hoping we can like limp into the postseason every once in a while. But if you don't hire an offensive minded head coach, if you're the Jaguars, you're almost waving the white flag here.
He needs the triage now, like not in 2 years, not in 3 years. Like the career is going nowhere if he doesn't get like the reclamation project beginning now.
It's not his career's not going well. I mean, let's just be real about it. It's not going the way that anybody thought it would.
No, except for you. You've always been a hater.
I his college numbers were not great.
Anyway,
I mean, they were the 1 year. The 1 year was awesome.
It is true. He did peak as a college freshman. It's never ideal.
No.
Did Bobby Slowik do nothing wrong, Denny? C.J. Stroud just, oh man, our guy is a mess. Like C.J., he's such a mess. He's such a mess. It was hard to watch.
The throwing stuff. We're going to talk about Anthony Richardson's throwing mechanics. Our guy Stroud needs to work on that stuff too. I'll be honest. Like that, he didn't look right at all. No. Maybe he was injured. I don't know.
Yeah, he looked in between, I would say, like a hitter in baseball who's like in between swings or something. Like, he looked in between
all the time.
Yeah,
all the time. There was never just like a confident step and throw. Anyway, let me read you some numbers because people may think, what are they talking about? Bobby Slowik did nothing wrong. He did everything wrong.
Which he did, but I'm just putting just in the interest of debate.
We're creating discourse out of whole cloth, because it's January. DeMeco Ryan.
I just wanted to bring this up because all year he'd been infuriating me, but by the end of the year it had almost become undeniable. Like, yeah, maybe he's trying. Like he's doing this for CJ Stroud's own good and trying to protect him. Sorry to cut you off, right?
The way that DeMeco Ryan's responded to a question about Slowik the other day, I would guess that Slowik's on his way out, but
I didn't hear that actually. So
I mean, he said, well, I saw Bobby improve as the season went on. That wasn't
no, that's over. Yeah, all right, never mind. He did a lot wrong.
So the Texans were top 5 in pass rate over expected. Only the Vikings, Chiefs, Bengals, and Jets had a higher pass rate over expected. Over the season's final 8 weeks, only Kansas City and Cincinnati had a higher pass rate over expected. So they were throwing the ball like at a pretty high rate. The Texans were top 10 in early down pass rate. So that's that thing where like you don't really want to run it too much unless you're like a legendary run team like the Eagles this year. On early downs, the Texans were pass heavy on early downs. They were seventh highest early down pass rate over the second half of the season. They used motion on 60% of their dropbacks. That's top 10 rate in the league. Texans faced here's where the problem comes in. And this might have had to do with losing Nico Collins for a time there to his injury. Texans faced 2 high safeties at the 6th highest rate in the league this year. They were 28th. Stroud was 28th in fantasy points per drop back against 2 highs. So they really had like no answer for when teams just dropped back and said, we're going to put a shell on this thing. For whatever reason, he could not do it in the short areas. Only Anthony Richardson was more inaccurate on short area throws. It's not a great thing for a guy who looked unbelievable as a rookie. Not so good. The regression was stunning last year.
It was stunning. I wonder how much was the blocking, but then it's like chicken and the egg. He took so many sacks. That's when it finally, like you might say I was like late to the party on this, but it finally truly clicked to me. Like I knew C.J. Stroud had not had a good year. I'd seen it with my own eyes many times. And this was regressing, wasn't the same as he was as a rookie, but just the sacks against the Chiefs. I was like, man, what is this guy doing? Like just taking this mammoth losses. Like it was honestly the difference in the game.
Yeah, it was.
And like you said, like he looks like he's throwing darts. It's so weird, and not like the good kind of. This is not to connotate like missiles. Like
no,
he's trying to like.
No, it's a short arm. It's a short arm almost.
Yeah.
I saw several of those to Tank Dell in a game where Stroud really melted down in the second half, where I just couldn't believe he was throwing the football like that. Like
that was weird.
I'm hoping like someone within the organization is seeing that and being like, what is up with you doing that short arm thing?
Maybe even if Slowik did nothing wrong, it's just a classic, like the new voice needs to try to get in here before things get too weird or like too out of hand with CJ Stroud, which is, he's won a playoff game each of his first 2 years in the league. So it can kind of be like, well, how wrong could things really be going? But Mark Sanchez also won a playoff game his first 2 years in the league.
That's right.
You can't hang everything on that. And something had gone horribly. The Texans had they had no continuity this year. Like Tank Dell started the year not looking healthy. He gets hurt late. Steph Diggs gets injured real early. Joe Mixon, who was running really well at the beginning of the year, misses a month. Nico Collins misses a month. The blocking's an abject disaster. So they kind of had alibis in that regard. Like they said, no continuity week to week on offense. But I felt like Slowik could have protected him even more. I guess back to it. It's just like it didn't seem like a well-designed offense to me.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying with all the stats about early down pass rate and whatnot is that Stroud, per the metrics, was put in a position to succeed and he didn't. The offense was put on his shoulders. The fact that it failed so spectacularly.
And the numbers might say that when you watch the games. I will say I did not get that sense. When I watched the games, it was like, wow, yet another Joe Mixon carry, huh?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's kind of a disconnect between the stats and I don't know. It's a weird one, basically. It's a really, really weird one because I would not have guessed those rates until you told me.
Yeah. I mean, not just like if you squint, they were pass heavy. They were pass heavy.
When you watched the Texans game, didn't you get the sensation like all you ever saw was Joe Mixon getting the ball?
I did. I did absolutely. Which is why when I first looked into this last week, I was like, wait a second. I actually had to like triple check stuff. I was like, no. This is not making any sense.
So we were going to talk about Cooper Kupp next, but let's talk about Anthony Richardson now because you've mentioned him a few times. What was so bad? What is he doing to fix that? Is there any hope of it working? Things of that nature.
Yeah. Anthony Richardson, according to ESPN, Stephen Holder is going to work with biometrics coach Chris Hess this offseason. Hess is, I guess, widely known for his work with Josh Allen a few off seasons ago to kind of smooth out Allen's rough early career form. I mean, he had, came into the league very raw. It's not the first time that someone has comped these two, Richardson and Allen. And now, Allen is a very efficient, pretty accurate passer. And his throwing motion is completely different. I remember seeing a special on this. A special segment a few months ago, and I was like, wow, I didn't realize how much it had changed. But yeah, I mean, I don't have to I will, but I don't have to recite the stats for you to know that Anthony Richardson was absolutely abysmal on short area throws, 12% below his expected completion rate on throws between 0 and 10 yards. Only DTR was worse.
So how was anyone worse? But at least it was DTR.
DTR, worst quarterback in the league. So I mean, and just to speak normally here, Richardson completed only 41% of those short area throws. For context, Jalen Hurts led the league with an 86% completion rate in that range.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean it's that sort of disaster, I guess, for Richardson. On intermediate throws, meaning between 11 and 19 yards, he was 8% below his expected completion rate. Only Aaron Rodgers was worse in that range.
Hate to see it.
Yeah, I know. Lamar Jackson led the league, 68% completion rate on intermediate throws. Richardson was way down at 44%. And so he has a ways to go. The report is that the Colts recognize that this is an area of major concern. And honestly, if he doesn't get better at those kind of throws, I could see him facing a competition for the week 1 starter job next year.
I think he will face the competition for the week 1 starter job, to be honest. And it's so all the advanced stats like are very telling in this instance, but too, like these are like the classic back of the football card stats. His just normal, unadjusted at all levels of the field completion percentage is 47.7.
Yeah.
He had 4 more interceptions than touchdowns. Like our guy's not throwing the ball well.
No, it's not.
It's already Hail Mary time. Yeah, 2 years in the league or whatever. He's only 22, but it's Hail Mary time already. And like it's a really, really good sign that we're reading on January 21st that he's doing this.
Yeah.
Like he understands the urgency. Like they're not waiting around. And like it probably won't work. I don't know if anything could work when you're really this inaccurate, but it's very good that they understand like how serious this moment is for the future of his career.
I would say Richardson probably doesn't need to improve to the level of Josh Allen in order to keep his job and to be a long-term starter.
No, very good point.
But he's got to improve at some point on those like very standard kind of NFL throws, and just the eye test, whatever you want to call it. Like there were a lot of missed throws. I mean, I remember in the Rotoworld Slack, we would talk about it every week. Like yes. I just saw what might be the worst 10-yard pass I've ever seen. And you can't keep going with that. Like, and it doesn't matter. I know he's like Anthony Richardson, like Kyle said, he's Derrick Henry in a quarterback's body, and that's awesome. And as a rusher, he's pretty good, but you can't get away with it forever. Do you remember in the preseason he threw a pick 6, a really awful pick 6 against the Bengals, I think, and it was excused as it was like a national game, an island game. And it was excused as a miscommunication with his pass catcher, which it may have been, but that's all part of it, right?
Yeah, bad quarterbacks love miscommunication.
Right. I mean, that's part of the deal. Is like you communicate, like you understand your players, the offense enough to avoid those like baffling pick 6 kind of interceptions. So he has a long way to go. It is good, like you said, that they're getting ahead of it instead of waiting until next offseason or whatever.
But Aaron Rodgers, by the way, I've never seen someone have more failures of communication with their receiver. Denny chewing something right now. Yeah. I'm sorry to call you out.
Little snack.
Good time for a break. Denny can finish some snack. We'll be right back talking about Cooper Kupp. Manchester City tries to climb back up the Premier League table this Saturday when they face Chelsea. City beat the Blues at the beginning of the season. Can they do it again this weekend? Erling Haaland would like to know. Find out at 12:30 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on Peacock. Cole Palmer, I believe, is the Chelsea man there. Is his name Cole? Yeah, Cole Palmer. Cole Palmer, listen, not going to cast aspersions, but if you want to see someone who looks like they're from England, look at Cole Palmer. No doubt. Yeah, Cole Palmer is an extremely, extremely good young player. But absolutely no doubt what country he's from if you Google Cole Palmer. But yep,
very English. Huh?
That's an Englishman. All right. No doubt where friggin' Cooper Kupp, Denny. Cooper Kupp is basically I don't know if I'm going to be back. He knows that like the bell is potentially tolling on his time with the Rams. He was mentioned as a trade candidate. They didn't trade him. Then they didn't use him after that. What was going on with Cooper Kupp? Rams' future is uncertain. Let's talk about Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford. We talked about this a little on Sunday evening with Kyle. Just kind of give us the lay of the land for the Rams going forward with Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, so Kupp, over his final 3 games with the Rams this season, 7 targets on 65 routes, and that is really, really quite bleak for a guy who used to be targeted at the highest rate in the league per route, Puka has completely took over his role. Puka's ADOT over those final 3 games for the Rams, under 4 average at the target. Kupp's was 12, almost 12.
Never been more over.
And
go run some cardio.
Yeah, I mean, it was basically like, look, you run downfield, we'll try to get it to you when we can, but you are not a priority at all. I don't know if that's just because Puka Nacua is so good. I mean, there are a lot of things that suggest that Puka Nacua could be like not all time, but kind of close. Like unquestionably elite.
He's looking a little bit generational. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Quasi generational. And Cooper Kupp, has been phased out. So I wouldn't be surprised if they part ways. I guess the question is, can he still get open? And the stats would say no. He was 108th out of 115 qualifying receivers in ESPN's open score this past season.
Wow.
Hardly anyone was where he was. He was near Jalin Polk.
The Zoomers do not remember.
They don't.
They've forgotten all about him.
So it's not the numbers are not kind to Cooper Kupp, who again has been through myriad injuries at this point. It may have just all caught up with him this season.
Cooper Kupp still guaranteed $5 million in 2025. They can clear a $7.5 million in the cap, though, even just by cutting him. I feel like they might make that trade-off just for cap space purposes. And teams don't usually like to eat that amount of real cash, but I think they could maybe in the sense. So the Rams, too, have proven like they can make like almost anyone productive. Like Demarcus Robinson just randomly becomes productive. Like Jordan Whittington randomly becomes productive as a rookie. Like Tutu Atwell never plays, but then when he has to play, like easily makes plays. Where I feel like they might want to allocate those salary cap dollars somewhere else. So I do think Cooper Kupp is probably a cut candidate, despite $5 million. That's kind of a decent amount of real money, but teams eat more than that all the time, even in real terms.
And there might be a team out there that would eat some of that.
Someone should trade for Cooper Kupp, I will say. Someone should, like, for $5 million. Well, base salary is $12.5 million. But basically, you could acquire him as in a restructure and probably have him not. I don't know how that would work necessarily. He'd make more than $5 million.
I mean, I'm just spitballing here, but like, I think he would make a good number 2 for the Cowboys, behind Lamb. Like that would make a lot of sense to me.
Cooper Kupp to the Chiefs? ? Many are saying.
I mean, they're gobbling up washed veterans.
That's true. He powerful DeAndre Hopkins vibes actually for Cooper Kupp.
Hopkins, man, not even targeted this past week against the Texans.
No, it was it's his first ever appearance where he did not catch a pass in the NFL. Yes, really? First ever game where DeAndre Hopkins did not catch a pass.
Wow,
pretty stunning.
It's if he had a better quarterback, maybe.
I'm not gonna let that slide. Do you want to talk EPA now, or should we do it next week?
Let's save it for next week because I think it's a good conversation and we can expand on it. I was going to talk about some EPA underachievers, which they're going to stay the same, next week. Falcons, 49ers, Cardinals, things of that nature. These teams should have been better this past
year. I'm assuming that's going to be in an article also, Denny?
Yeah,
correct?
It will be.
So look out for that. Look out for that in the show. But of course, in the meantime, look out for us on Thursday with Kyle. When we come back to break down Bills at Chiefs and Commanders at Eagles, 2 colossal games this weekend to decide who's playing in Super Bowl licks.
Yeah, that's funny. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, LIX. They're really desperately wishing the Roman numerals were different for the.
Yeah, they're looking into maybe not using Roman numerals first time.
So we'll be to preview the championship games on Thursday. So for Denny, I'm Kyle. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back with you in 48 hours.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and Rotoworld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Rotoworld fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.